They say money can't buy happiness, and perhaps nowhere is that truth more tragically evident than in the lives we're about to explore together. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine being born into unimaginable wealth, where your cradle is lined with silk and your future seems golden. Now imagine that same wealth becoming a cage, a curse, a burden too heavy for young shoulders to carry. Today, we're stepping back through the corridors of time to meet 5 extraordinary women who had everything the world could offer, yet found themselves trapped in stories that would break your heart. Before we begin this journey together, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to this channel and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring you more stories like these. And if this resonates with you, a gentle tap on the like button lets me know we're connecting across the miles. Our first story takes us to a winter morning in Manhattan, February the 20th, 1924. The city was draped in snow, and in one of its grandest homes, a baby girl drew her first breath. Her father gazed down at her tiny face and whispered words that would echo through history. "It's fantastic how Vanderbilt she looks," he said, tracing the upturned corners of her eyes. "See how they turn up, just like the family." That baby was Gloria Vanderbilt, and from the moment she entered the world, she carried the weight of one of America's most powerful dynasties on her impossibly small shoulders. The Vanderbilt name was synonymous with railways and steamships, with the very steel and steam that had built modern America. Her great-great-grandfather, Cornelius Vanderbilt, had once been perhaps the wealthiest man alive, his fortune so vast it could barely be counted. By the time little Gloria arrived, that wealth had spread through generations like roots of an ancient tree. But even the smallest branches still bore golden fruit. Her great-grandfather, Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt, had inherited millions, though his older brother Alfred had claimed the lion's share. Still, in an era when wealth could multiply itself if handled wisely, Reginald's inheritance would have set any family up for generations of comfort. But comfort and wisdom don't always walk hand in hand. Reginald was a man of appetites, drawn to expensive horses, high-stakes gambling, and bottles that promised escape but delivered only emptiness. The alcohol that coursed through his veins would ultimately destroy him. When Gloria was barely 18 months old, still learning to form words and take steady steps, her father's liver gave out. Cirrhosis, the doctors said, as if giving it a name could somehow soften the blow. September 1925 marked the day Gloria lost her father she would never truly know. Her mother, also named Gloria, but born Gloria Morgan, came from a different world of privilege, a family known for political connections and social grace. She had just been a girl herself when she married Reginald, 24 years younger than her husband, and their union had produced this one precious daughter. In his will, Reginald left most of his fortune to Gloria and her half-sister Kathleen from an earlier marriage. To his widow, he left only a modest allowance, a decision that would plant seeds of conflict that would bloom into one of the most scandalous trials America had ever witnessed. Despite Reginald's poor choices and reckless spending, the estate Gloria inherited was staggering. $5 million in 1920s money, which would be worth close to $100 million today. It was held in trust, managed by her mother until Gloria came of age. But as the roaring 20s gave way to the desperate 30s, and the Wall Street crash sent shockwaves through every level of society, questions arise. Gloria's aunt Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney started watching how her sister-in-law was spending the child's money. What she saw troubled her deeply. Gloria's mother had developed a taste for European glamour. Paris, London, Biarritz. She flitted from one glittering city to another like a butterfly drawn to the brightest flowers. Often, young Gloria was left behind in New York with relatives while her mother danced through Europe's most fashionable ballrooms. By 1934, Gertrude had seen enough. She filed legal charges, demanding custody of her niece and questioning whether Gloria's mother was fit to parent at all. What followed was dubbed the trial of the century, though it really was just a custody battle dressed up in scandal and sensation. The newspapers couldn't get enough of it. Every day brought fresh revelations, whispered secrets dragged into the harsh light of the courtroom. Evidence emerged of a lesbian relationship Gloria's mother had been involved in, shocking for that conservative era. A maid testified for 5 straight hours, painting a picture of a mother who was, as one publication delicately put it, a cocktail-crazed dancing mother, a devotee of sex erotica, and the mistress of a German prince. The media seized on 10-year-old Gloria, calling her the poor little rich girl, an orphan in all but name, abandoned by a neglectful mother and claimed by a fortune that seemed more curse than blessing. The judge, trying to protect the child from the circus her life had become, cleared the courtroom when it came time for Gloria to testify. We can only imagine what that little girl said in that empty room, her voice echoing off the walls while adults decided her fate. When the verdict came down, Gertrude won. She was granted custody and control of Gloria's inheritance. Gloria's mother kept her allowance and weekend visitation rights, but the relationship between mother and daughter had been shattered like fine crystal dropped on marble. That wound never truly healed. Years later, when Gloria turned 21 and gained control of her fortune, she did something that spoke volumes. She stopped paying her mother's $21,000 annual allowance. "She can work for a living," Gloria said, her words sharp with old pain. "I'll donate that money to charity instead." Her mother would spend the rest of her life living with her sister, moving between New York and Los Angeles, 2 cities that must have felt equally empty. In 1965, cancer finally claimed her, and one wonders if she and her daughter ever truly reconciled before that final goodbye. Gloria grew up under Gertrude's roof, attending prestigious schools that groomed daughters of America's elite. First the Greenvale School on Long Island, where manicured lawns stretched forever and every girl wore pearls. Then Miss Porter's School in Connecticut, an institution that had educated generations of society's finest. But by 17, Gloria had grown tired of Gertrude's strict rules and rigid expectations. She packed her bags and headed west to Hollywood, drawn by dreams of art and acting, hungry for a life she could call her own. Those dreams led her into her first marriage at just 17 years old. Pat DeSico was a Hollywood agent in his early 30s, charming and dangerous in equal measure. The marriage was a nightmare. Years later, Gloria would speak of black eyes and psychological cruelty, of a man who belittled her until she barely recognized herself. She escaped through divorce in 1945, but the damage was done. Her Aunt Gertrude, who had disapproved from the start, had already written Gloria out of her will before dying in 1942. A single day after her divorce, Gloria married again. Leopold Stokowski was 63, a renowned conductor with silver hair and a commanding presence. He was 3 times her age, but this union was gentler, happier. They had 2 sons, Leopold and Christopher, before divorcing 10 years later. Then came Sidney Lumet in 1956, a Broadway director her own age who understood her artistic soul. He would go on to create masterpieces like 12 Angry Men, but their marriage ended in 1963. Just weeks later, Gloria married for the 4th and final time to Wyatt Emery Cooper, a writer and actor who gave her 2 more sons, Carter and Anderson. That marriage lasted until his death during heart surgery in 1978, and this time the grief was real and deep. But Gloria's story isn't just about marriages and heartbreak. In the 1970s, she found her true calling in fashion. She collaborated with Molhan Murjani to create a line of jeans bearing her name, and they became a sensation. The brand expanded into dresses, shoes, handbags, fragrances, catching every shift in women's fashion with an instinct that proved Gloria had inherited business sense along with her fortune. She became wealthy in her own right, not just through inheritance, but through her own vision and hard work. Her later years brought new interests. She returned to visual art, her paintings and pottery exhibited in galleries along the East Coast. She became a writer, publishing memoirs that finally told her side of the story. On June 17, 2019, Gloria Vanderbilt died at home in Manhattan at 95. She was laid to rest in the Vanderbilt family crypt, finally at peace. Now let us travel across the ocean, to Paris, to June 9, 1906. Another daughter of extreme privilege was born that day, a girl named Huguette Marcel Clark. Her father, William Andrews Clark, was nearing 70, a copper baron and railway magnate, a United States senator from Montana who had ridden the westward expansion to unimaginable wealth. Her mother, Anna Eugenia, was his second wife, and together they moved through European high society like visiting royalty. Little Huguette attended King George V's coronation in 1911, a memory most children couldn't even dream of. But soon she was sent to America for schooling, to the Spence School in Manhattan, where she lived in a 6-story, 121-room mansion on Fifth Avenue, believed to be the largest single-family home in New York at the time. Imagine being a child in such a palace, your footsteps echoing through endless corridors. Huguette had many siblings from her father's first marriage, all decades older than her. Her only full sister, Andrée, died of meningitis in 1919 when Huguette was just 13. That loss planted seeds of isolation that would only grow deeper with time. When William Clark died in 1925, he left behind a fortune estimated at $300 million, worth over $5 billion today. His wealth was divided among his wife and children, with Huguette receiving approximately $50 million. But unlike Gloria Vanderbilt, Huguette had no interest in society, business, or fame. She gave $50,000 to drain a saltwater pond at her Santa Barbara estate, creating a bird refuge she named after her lost sister. She attended fashion shows but spoke to almost no one. She displayed paintings but kept her circle impossibly small. In 1928, she briefly married a law student named William Gower. The marriage lasted less than a year. After the divorce, she retreated to New York to a vast apartment overlooking Central Park that she converted into her own private world. Through the 1930s, she grew more reclusive, donating anonymously, maintaining properties she never visited, trusting fewer and fewer people. When her mother died in 1963, Huguette's isolation became almost complete. She spoke French to hide her thoughts from servants. Rumors spread that she had died, so rarely was she seen. By the late 1980s, she was gravely ill, her face disfigured by cancerous lesions she had refused to treat. Finally, in 1991, she had no choice but to go to hospital. The surgery saved her life, but revealed the extent of her neglect. She hadn't seen a doctor in 20 years and appeared malnourished and confused. Yet after recovering, she did something extraordinary. She decided to stay in the hospital, paying nearly $1,000 a day for the privilege. She moved to Beth Israel Medical Center, took over a suite on the 11th floor with views of Central Park, hired private nurses, and lived there for the next 20 years. The strange thing was, this seemed to help her. Away from the pressures of her properties and possessions, she grew stronger, clearer. But she never contacted her staff at her apartment, her Santa Barbara estate, or her Connecticut mansion. They continued their work, receiving paychecks, maintaining properties, with no idea where their employer had gone. Meanwhile, Huguette was giving away her fortune. A lifelong friend received $10 million. Her private nurse received over $30 million in gifts. She gave a television repairman $25,000. When she died in May 2011 at 104 years old, controversy erupted immediately. 2 wills surfaced. The first left most of her $300 million estate to distant relatives. The second, signed just weeks later, left almost everything to charity and her nurse, disinheriting her family completely. Her relatives claimed she had been manipulated. The judge agreed, and the first will was enforced. Huguette was laid to rest in the Bronx, her true wishes remaining a mystery. Our third story takes us to November 14, 1912, back to New York City, where Barbara Woolworth Hutton was born. Her father, Franklin, was wealthy, but Barbara's real fortune came through her mother, Edna Woolworth, daughter of the man who had revolutionized retail with his 5 and dime stores. Frank Woolworth had built an empire on the simple idea that everything should cost a nickel or a dime.
And just months after Barbara was born, he opened the Woolworth Building, the tallest building in the world. But wealth couldn't protect Barbara from tragedy. Her father was a philanderer and a drunk, openly unfaithful, cruelly neglectful. When Barbara was just 5 years old, she found her mother's lifeless body. The official cause was an ear infection, but many whispered suicide. An autopsy was never performed. That image must have haunted Barbara's every day of life. After that, her father sent her away, raised by governesses and schools. When her grandfather died in 1919, followed by her grandmother in 1924, Barbara inherited a third of the Woolworth fortune, nearly $30 million, over $500 million today. By the time she turned 18 in 1930, the Great Depression had descended like a dark cloud over America. Millions were unemployed, families were starving, and the wealthy were blamed. Into this climate, her family threw her an extravagant debutante ball costing over $60,000. The press savaged her, calling her the poor little rich girl, a label that would follow her to her grave.
Barbara's life became a tragic carousel of marriages, 7 in all, each ending in heartbreak, several ending in suspicion that she had been married only for her money. Her first husband, Alexis Motviani, was a Georgian social climber who divorced his first wealthy wife to marry someone even wealthier. He drained Barbara's accounts before she divorced him in 1935. Her second husband, Count Kurt Haugwitz Reventlow, was physically and emotionally abusive. That marriage gave her a son, Lance, her only child, but also gave her anorexia, alcoholism, and addiction to prescription drugs. Her third marriage, to Cary Grant in 1942, was one of her happier ones, though it too ended in divorce 3 years later. The media mockingly called them cash and carry. At least Grant never took her money. Her fourth husband was a Russian prince. Her fifth, Porfirio Rubirosa, was perhaps the most scandalous. He was a playboy from the Dominican Republic who had previously been married to Barbara's rival, Doris Duke, another heiress born within days of Barbara. The marriage lasted 53 days. Her sixth and seventh marriages followed the same pattern. By the 1970s, Barbara's health was destroyed. Alcohol, drugs, and anorexia had ravaged her body. Her spending and divorce settlements had consumed most of her fortune. Then, in 1972, her son Lance died in a plane crash. After that, she retreated to a penthouse in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, nearly blind, addicted to painkillers, alone. She died of a heart attack in May 1979 at 66. Reports claimed she had only $3,500 left, from $500 million to nearly nothing. Our fourth story takes us to December 11, 1950. Christina Onassis was born into a world of unimaginable wealth. Her father, Aristotle Onassis, had built a shipping empire that dominated the Mediterranean. Her mother, Tina, was the daughter of his greatest rival. Christina and her older brother Alexander were the heirs to it all. But Christina's childhood was far from idyllic. Her parents' marriage was rocky, strained by her father's affair with opera singer Maria Callas. They divorced when Christina was 10. Then her father began dating Jackie Kennedy and married her in 1968. Christina and Alexander despised Jackie, believing she was only interested in their father's money. Then came the tragedy that would define Christina's life. In January 1973, her brother Alexander, an experienced pilot, took off from Athens airport. Something went wrong. The plane crashed, and Alexander died the next day, at just 24. Their father became paranoid, convinced it was assassination. But Christina knew it was just a terrible accident, and now she was the sole heir. Her mother couldn't bear it. Tina had remarried twice, but Alexander's death sent her spiraling. In October 1974, she died from an overdose, likely a suicide. 6 months later, in March 1975, Aristotle died too. Christina, at 24, had lost her entire immediate family in just over 2 years. "I am all alone in the world now," she said.
She inherited approximately $600 million and control of a vast business empire. She sold off pieces, donated others to charity. But running the business didn't interest her. She lived in absurd luxury, sending private jets to fetch diet soda. The press reported on her weight fluctuations, her crash diets, her growing addiction to prescription drugs. Christina married 4 times between 1971 and 1987. First to a real estate tycoon when she was 20, then to a Greek shipping heir in 1975, then to Sergei Kautsov, a Russian who many believe was a KGB agent. Her 4th husband was Thierry Roussel, a French pharmaceutical heir who gave her a daughter, Athena, born in 1985. But Roussel was unfaithful, fathering children with his mistress while married to Christina. Christina's depression deepened, her drug use spiraled. On November 19, 1988, she was found dead in a bathtub at a friend's house in Argentina. She was 37. Heart attack, the doctors said. She was buried in Greece beside her father and brother. Her estate went to 3-year-old Athena. Our final story is perhaps the most haunting. Dorothy Harriet Camille Arnold was born July 1, 1885, in New York City. Her father, Francis, ran a successful import business. Dorothy grew up in privilege, attending elite schools and Bryn Mawr College, where she studied literature and dreamed of becoming a writer. After graduating in 1905, she returned home. She wrote stories, but publishers rejected them all. Her family mocked her ambitions. In 1910, she asked her father for her own apartment in Greenwich Village. He refused. On December 12, 1910, Dorothy left home wearing an expensive blue coat and a distinctive black velvet hat with 2 blue roses. She told her mother she was shopping. Downtown, she met an acquaintance, Gladys King, who gave her a note for her sister's party. Dorothy mentioned she'd walk home through Central Park. They said goodbye. That was the last time anyone saw Dorothy Arnold. She never came home. Her parents were worried but didn't call the police immediately, fearing scandal. For weeks, they hired private detectives. Only in late January did they report her missing. The media went wild. Attention focused on George Griscom, Jr., a man Dorothy had been seeing secretly. He was in Italy and claimed to know nothing. Police searched Central Park but found nothing. In February, the family received a postcard saying, "I am safe," signed in Dorothy's handwriting, but it was determined to be a hoax. Theories abounded. Was she pregnant and died during an abortion? Did she take her own life? Was she murdered? In 1916, a criminal claimed he'd helped dispose of her body, but later retracted his story. Supposed sightings continued for decades. Dorothy Arnold's father spent over $250,000 searching for her. Dorothy Arnold simply vanished, becoming one of New York's greatest mysteries. These 5 women, born into wealth beyond imagination, all found that money couldn't protect them from tragedy, loneliness, or loss. Their stories remind us that beneath the silk and jewels, they were simply human beings trying to find happiness. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If their lives moved you, please let me know in the comments. Until next time, may we remember that kindness and compassion are the only riches that truly matter.